Hey, Lauren, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, recording a show with your wife. Tell me, is this good? Is it like a kind of couples therapy? Tell me more about this and how does that work?
That's funny. It could easily be couples therapy because in this season that I am posting right now with my wife, we're doing kind of not really an interview series, but just explaining our love story and all of the challenges that came with it during that time. I also was going through divorce and all of this crazy stuff. So, yeah, definitely could be therapy, but it's been having a really incredible impact and people have been really loving this series. It's something that I held back from doing for a long time because it's a very intimate story. It's very personal. And, I had a lot of mindset blocks around like, what if people judge me? What if people like think of me different? But in the end, after posting, I've actually received so many just love notes from listeners saying like that they love hearing our story and they're so glad that we put it out there because it's really a beautiful story and there's a lot of amazing lessons in it as well. So
Did you discover something new about your relationship, about yourself by chatting? Because sometimes you get to explore things that
yeah,
in this podcasting can be very therapeutical, in my opinion,
yeah.
because you get to think about it and speak about it. Is there some like kind of lessons that you were able
hmm
to take either from your relationship or from you kind of as a person in these kind of interactions?
Yeah. So this happened 3 years ago, our story, when we came together. And as I mentioned, I was going through a divorce. So my self confidence completely, plummeted. It was the first time that I was in a relationship with a woman. So there were a lot of external factors that were really influencing me and my confidence and myself as a leader and entrepreneur. And I had come from a place where I was so used to being vulnerable with my audience. And I know that my vulnerability and my stories is really what sells me as an entrepreneur and as a coach. It's what really moves people to want to work with me because I'm so open and honest. But I went through probably like a 2.5 year period where I didn't really feel like I could be myself. So this series with my wife has been really, I would say, um, a tool to find myself again
Hmm.
as that person that I was before, who I've kind of been hiding and filtering. So I guess the biggest lesson or takeaway, it's been very healing, like you said, because now I've been able to fully express what I've been through and what kept me kind of hiding in my business for a while. And yeah, I honestly feel like there's been a weight lifted off of my shoulders being able to speak about it and put it out there, even though I was really afraid to do that.
Yeah, and I actually I think I would advise everyone or people to sometimes in their shows to bring someone close to them, either a spouse or like a friend or a parent. Actually, someone, I had an interview here with someone that actually had interviewed his parents, and uh, it's a really interesting exercise to prepare this kind of interviews and this kind of conversations, because sometimes you get to explore things in a more kind of formatted way that you don't explore normally, right? uh, so I know that your podcasting is also around coaching and around kind of intuition, spirituality. Can you give us the pitch of your pod? Like, what's the name of your pod and what's it about?
So I'm the host of the Aligned and Magnetic podcast, and the basis of everything that I do, so I talk about a lot of things, but I have this belief that everybody deserves to make money doing what they absolutely love to do. Um, and so we talk about, everything in terms of taking your dream business off of the back burner or your dream life and really making your vision a reality. And this comes from several years of me having this dream, having this vision for how my life was going to be, but thinking that I had to accomplish it in like a 10-year plan or via a corporate job, right? That I was absolutely miserable in. So, what we talk about primarily is definitely spirituality, mindset, but also very practical approaches that are backed by neuroscience to help my listeners to really tap into their intuition as their number one guiding tool when they're making decisions in life and business. And we also talk a lot about being your authentic self. So it's really a place where you can just give yourself permission to not do everything the way everyone's telling you to do it, but to really follow your heart and follow your intuition to get to that end goal or that dream that you have for yourself in a way that works really well for you, because we're not all designed to be the
Mhm.
same. We're not all designed to, go out and build like the same business. We all have our own
Right.
unique essence. So it's really about tapping into that.
Mhm. Do you feel that we get somehow pressured, or there's a lot of pressure from society
Oh,
to
yeah.
tell us like what we should do?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And how can we identify that? How can we identify that we are being pressured to do something? Because sometimes you just convince yourself, right? You're doing
Yeah.
a podcast, or you're doing a job, or because everyone's told you that you should do that, but then in the end, you actually don't really want to do that. But
Yeah.
but you convince yourself that you want. So you say, no, that's what I am. I am whatever, an
Yeah.
engineer or a dancer or whatever. How can someone identify that they are being pressured to do something without even knowing?
Yeah, so the best way that I can explain this is just by sharing my story. When I was working at my 9 to 5 corporate job, I was googling during my lunch breaks how to live a laptop lifestyle, how to make money while traveling the world, how to start my own business, because I was miserable at my 9 to 5 and I just knew that's not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. But I remember very clearly taking a sticky note one day and writing down my 5-year plan. So, my 5-year plan was to get my MBA, work in that miserable corporate job, and then eventually buy a house and whatever, all of the rest of the things that,
Right.
I thought in my head that's how to get success. But deep down, and I think it's kind of challenging to tune into this when you're new to listening to your intuition. So I just want to say that it's okay if anyone's struggling with that. But I know that deep down, everyone has like an inner desire or an inner something that keeps nudging them. It keeps interesting them. It's like exciting to them, but they ignore it because we think like, oh, well, we have to go down this path, right? The proven path, the safe path. We have to plan all of these things. And I also remember during that time with my 5-year plan, I turned to my coworker and I said, look, I have a 5-year plan. This is what's going to happen. And she looked at me and she said, Lauren, God doesn't care about your plans. And I was
Hmm.
like so taken aback. But it's funny because, 7 or 8 years later, I know what she means. I
Hmm.
actually ended up getting not renewed. So my contract at that job was supposed to renew, but the leadership changed, the environment turned very toxic, but I
Hmm.
was still going to stay because it was safe. So
Right.
my contract actually didn't get renewed, which gave me the opportunity to find something else for the interim. And I actually ended up moving to Mexico for 6 years to start my
Wow.
online business. Yeah.
Well,
So
that's a huge turn.
yeah, it was really
Turn
huge.
in life. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I mean though, is that we always like if you tune into your internal voice, like if you tune into those dreams, I think from a young age we get, conditioned to not dream, right? We get
Hmm.
conditioned to just follow the adulting responsibility
Yeah.
path.
Hmm.
But I just want to give permission to whoever's listening to start to like think about those dreams again and maybe take
Hmm.
one small action toward that, because often
Hmm.
those dreams are guiding us to where we're meant to be in life.
Hmm. Yeah, you're just saying something really interesting when we were in the green room, which was you think that people know how to guide their business just based on intuition. They just need to tap into that. Can you give a little bit more clarity on how people can use access that
Yeah.
intuition and based on that actually make good decisions
Yeah.
that will lead to a successful business, successful podcast?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah, so it's the same concept, right? A lot of us as creators, entrepreneurs, we have like ideas of what would be fun and exciting to do, right? But a lot of the time we put those on the back burner because we're like, oh, well, this is how so and so achieved success with their podcast, or this is how so and so made six figures, or this is how so and so built their successful business. But what I have noticed is that when we, especially, with my clients and myself, when we actually take action on those small whispers and those ideas, that those ideas can actually lead to really big success or connections. Like, you never know where those ideas are going to bring you. But I believe we all have the answers within us. I'll give an example. The other day, I was on a coaching call with one of my clients, and she was like, I really want to pursue coaching. I love coaching, but I don't know if it's for me. And I said, okay, why? Like, what's going on? What are you thinking? And she's like, well, I really just don't want to go out and chase people. I don't want to chase clients. I don't want to do the whole
yeah,
marketing, the social media, the this, the that. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And how would you like to get clients then? And she said, I would love to make partnerships with people and get referrals and have word of mouth. And, that's a completely possible path to take. It might take
right.
longer than having like, a social media presence, but the thing that I'm really trying to, I guess, say here is that there's a lot of people out there that are giving you like the best advice, right? With air quotes, because the best advice I think comes from yourself. Not every business model is going to fit every single person. And so while yes, there's strategies that can be effective, yes, there's proven methods, I think the most important thing as an entrepreneur or creator is to really tap into what feels exciting, what feels right to you, because those are the strategies that are going to yield the best results.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Do you think is there any kind of exercise that someone can quickly do? Someone that is like listening,
Mhm.
and I don't know, maybe some meditation or
Yeah.
writing down a plan, or I don't, I really don't know. But I'm just curious if there is some techniques that people can quickly do that will give them some idea,
Mhm.
or on how to tap to their intuition.
Yeah, absolutely. So, meditation is definitely a good one. Knowing that a lot of people struggle with that, I'll give a second option. Um, so, what you could do as a journaling exercise, because I know that the plan you should do is going to come out first. That's what people are thinking about. They tend to ruminate a lot on that plan that they think they should do, and the pressures and the overwhelm and all of that stuff. So get that out on paper first. Jot it down. If you have to execute it, it's there, right? So you get that out. You can come back to it later. It's not going anywhere. And then I would give yourself permission to really just like let go of that plan and ask yourself the
Yeah.
question, if I could get to X result any way that I wanted to, how would I do it?
Mhm.
And see what comes up, right? Like, you never know what
Yeah,
what
no
can
judgment.
come up.
Just write
Yeah.
down what else come. Yeah, and then
Yeah,
ask yourself
exactly.
why not. I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right, yeah, and that's a start, just to start to get those creative juices flowing, right? And just
Hmm.
to start to dream again. I think, like I said earlier, we've really stopped dreaming as adults, because not
Hmm.
everybody, but a lot of people, um, because we think we have to follow like the
Hmm.
step by step thing.
Yeah, I think you just said a very interesting expression, like give yourself permission, which is an
Hmm.
expression that is used a lot. But if you really think about it, it's so interesting, right? Like
Yeah,
it's yourself. Why do you
right.
need to give yourself permission, right?
Yeah,
Uh, I don't know. I think it's a little bit because there's a part of you that just follows whatever society pressures you to do, right?
yeah,
And then, so I really like this idea of okay, write down everything that you should do, Now give yourself permission to, like, what would you do, like, if there was no external pressure, what would you do? And then ask yourself why not.
Mm-hmm.
um, for someone that actually likes meditation, I like meditation, so what is a technique
Mm-hmm.
for someone to do some kind of meditation that would then take them towards really tapping into
Yeah.
that intuition?
So, something that I firmly believe in is that the results that we desire, we don't have to get there on our own. And when I mean on
Mm.
our own, I don't mean like you can outsource a team and all of this stuff, right? But I believe that we have like a spiritual team that we can lean
Mm-hmm.
into. There's energy, right? And there's a lot of science to back up the quantum physics and like all of the, when you set an intention and you focus on the outcome, and you shift your frequency, that really incredible things can happen. So something that I like to do in my business is I will meditate and I will envision my goal. So let's say I'm launching a new program, or let's say I'm launching season 2 of the podcast and I have a very big goal in mind. So I will sit and meditate on that goal. I'll focus on like visualizing that goal coming to fruition, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
feel, I think feeling is very important too. Like feel what it feels like to have that goal already achieved.
Wow. Okay.
Um and then what I'll do is I'll ask, so I'll say, if you believe in your higher self, or you believe in God or the universe or angels, or even if you believe in nothing, you can even just ask yourself, like, what do I need to do to get there? Or like, what do I need to
Mm-hmm.
do to, I don't know, get this in the right hands? Whatever
Right.
the goal is, ask a question around, yeah, what is my next step? And you might
Mm.
not get an answer right away, but I notice that, as you move throughout your day and you're kind of enjoying your day, or like maybe you're sipping on your coffee, you might get like this brilliant idea to make that goal a reality. And
Yeah.
so that's one way that I really like to tune into my intuition, tune into the power of the universe, energetics, all of that stuff, to guide the actions, because I don't know how I'm going to get to the results that I want,
Mhm.
like, sure, there's lots of strategies that we can implement, but how do I know which strategy?
Right.
um so yeah, is that helpful?
Totally. It's funny. I was listening to an interview with Jeff Bezos from Amazon, and he said something that he believed in the power of wondering. So when he wakes up, for the first, I guess, hour of the day, he just wonders. Like,
Mm,
it doesn't rush towards work or reading the emails, just chilling, uh going around, and I, for me, it's actually the same. My best ideas come in the shower or while
yeah.
I'm walking. uh so I think, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. You spoke, or you mentioned about the word launching, and I would
Mm.
like to talk a little bit about this, because you have a unique way to launch your episode. You're about to launch your episodes. You're about to launch season 2 of your podcast. Yeah, tell us a little bit about your launching technique. So if someone is launching their podcast, or if you're launching your podcast or season, what do you do?
Yeah, so a really big thing for podcasts, if you want to, get ranked in the charts or whatever, is you want to really have people go and listen to the podcast when it drops. So that's something that's really important. And when I first launched the first season of my podcast, I had this goal of ranking the charts, but my community is not big. It's not huge. So I was like, crap, how am I going to reach that goal with such a small community? So I put a strategy in place. And what I did was I actually set up a podcast launch party and a funnel. So when people join the podcast launch party, they're joining to enter the giveaway. So last year I gave away around $1,000 worth in my programs and services to help people achieve a particular outcome. This year we've stepped it up to $8,000, and I'm actually giving away a $5,000 one-on-one coaching package, which I have never done before, but I'm very excited about it. And so this is a strategy that can help to attract people, of course. And you can give away anything, right? Last year I gave away some podcast merch. People loved it. They posted about it. Um, And I had a party, an after party to celebrate as well. We had like a fun spinning wheel where they could win more prizes. So I really just put a lot of emphasis on celebrating and giving back to people. And it's proven to be a very effective strategy because um, people love parties, people love free things.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I'm doing differently this year is leveraging word of mouth. So, with this $5,000 one on one coaching package that I'm giving away, the way to get that coaching package is to, or the best way of getting that is to share the podcast with friends.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm asking my listeners to, when they join the party, they go through an email sequence, and it's like, okay, every day they get, a little prize reveal, and they get a podcast party action, and they can email me the result of the action. So it's a way of engaging with people, making it really fun to engage with the podcast, and then also spreading the word with other people.
Mm-hmm. And what is this kind? Is it a virtual party? Do you have
Yeah.
everyone on Zoom?
Yeah. Yeah. So the lead up to the party, they go through the funnel, and they can enter to win the prizes by completing those actions. And then at the end of, I haven't chosen a party date yet, but probably sometime in March, we will all come together and I'll announce the prizes. We'll announce, how we did with the podcast. So I'll share with them the reviews and what people have been saying and all of that stuff. And it's just a great way of celebrating together with the listeners
That's a
because,
cool idea. Mm-hmm.
yeah, our listeners is what makes our podcast, right? Without our
Right.
listeners, we wouldn't have a platform. So, yeah, it's fun.
And you're just telling me as well that when you launched, you got top 100
Hmm.
business related podcasts in Apple, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
And
definitely
the
worked.
Yeah, it did work. It worked really well. I was actually shocked because I got an email from some charts. They follow the charts and they email you. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, what? This has to be a mistake. There's no way with my amount of listeners and my
Mm-hmm.
small audience that I ranked in the charts, but I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just very proud of myself for that because it was a goal that I
Good.
had and I didn't know how I would accomplish it, but we did.
Mm-hmm. No, I like this idea of launch party. I think it's the first time that we're actually speaking about that here in the podcast. So I think it's a great tip
Cool.
for people that are starting out. Um, yeah, we're getting close to the end of this chat. But as a last question, I'm curious to
Yeah.
know, how do you like integrate Podsqueeze in your flow, like your publishing flow
Yeah.
and release flow?
So my favorite thing, Podsqueeze has been so helpful for me because as a creator, I have these amazing ideas and I can talk and I can share them. But once it's out of my mouth and it's in the podcast, I like forget about it. I
Mm,
don't remember what I said. I don't know. And I'm so like I have other things to focus on than to listen again to the episode. And there's a lot to do, when you're editing, you're not necessarily taking notes. So, Podsqueeze has been a lifesaver in terms of making show notes for me,
mm,
reminding me of what I talked about, creating social media posts, blog posts. It's really helpful to get the creativity flowing to
mm,
do the rest of what I need to do to get the episodes out there. If I didn't have Podsqueeze, I think it would be a lot harder for me to actually share about the episode because I would just be like, ugh, like whatever, it's out there. Like I can't even bother to, make the social media post and all of that
yeah.
for it.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
people use Podsqueeze as an ideation tool, actually.
Oh, really?
Like to take you, especially for the titles, to take them
Oh,
to.
yeah.
So it depends on how precise you want to be on your podcast, or uh, the voice you want to transmit. Some people just copy paste whatever Podsqueeze generates, and some of them use maybe 80-90% of the results, and then
Hmm.
you put their own voice and their own twist to it. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the
All right.
headings are definitely
Yeah.
helpful too.
Tell us again, where can we find you? What's the name of your podcast? Where are your
Hmm.
socials? Everything, so that people can go listen to your pod.
Yeah, so it's the Aligned and Magnetic podcast. We have an Instagram. It's at Aligned and Magnetic, or you can follow me at Coach Lauren Ashley. That's where I primarily show up, but you'll find me through the podcast one as well.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I will link everything in the show notes of this episode. Lauren, thank you so
awesome.
much for sharing your knowledge.
My pleasure. This was so fun.
This podcast is brought to you by Podsqueeze, an essential tool for podcasters that creates show notes, timestamps, clips, and more. Visit podsqueeze.com and use the code PODCASTER for 20% discount in the first 3 months. We release a new episode every Tuesday and Thursday. See you in the next episode of Lessons from a Podcaster.